Hi, everybody. Grand finale here. Going to talk about patriarchy, the death of nature, and the roots of our ecological crisis. This relates directly to Lynn White Jr.'s article, in which he argues that Christianity and Western science and technology are at the roots of the environmental crisis that we're experiencing. All I want to do here is add patriarchy, add this to the equation that he's putting out. Recall that we started the semester looking at the development of patriarchy. That's why we so usefully juxtaposed the Venus figurines with Hammurabi's code, the one suggesting a relationship in Neolithic peoples in which women were equal to, if not worshipped more than men. The Hammurabi's code, the latter, showing a relationship between men and women in which male gods handed down to male rulers a set of laws which codified the patriarchy, the subordination of women to men, the subordination of female to male. Recall, too, that Hammurabi's code is associated with the control of nature. Rain knows no social distinction, but irrigation requires a state. These massive hydraulic engineering, these large-scale technological systems projects are, in fact, part and parcel of the rise of the state and the rise of the patriarchal society that we see in Mesopotamia. So, adding now the control of nature and patriarchy share roots. I've already discussed that. I want to talk quickly about White's intellectual context, and then the way the death of nature and the role of women in the West share roots. And finally, just to say that I'd like you to engage these ideas. I'd like you to listen with an open mind as you hear them. So first, Lynn White Jr.'s intellectual context. Of course, this is during the rise of environmentalism, the modern environmental movement. I could have picked many events here, but the one that's so interesting because it happens also in March of 1967, the same month that Lynn White publishes this article in the journal Science, is the first major oil spill by a supertanker, the supertanker Torrey Canyon. So these are a new breed of ships coming out in the 1960s that are just so much more massive than what's gone before. That when there is a spill, in this case 120,000 tons of crude oil end up on the beaches of Northern Europe and Great Britain, people really start to notice. Similar things happen out in California, and there are other environmental catastrophes that are making people wake up to an ecological crisis or identify an ecological crisis. The other event, though, worth noting is Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. Many of you are probably familiar with this text, but it's a seminal text in the rise of the modern environmental movement in which Rachel Carson, a science journalist, wrote that DDT, a widely used pesticide, was in fact killing songbirds, and that we would one day, if we continued to use DDT, wake up to a silent spring, a spring in which these songbirds no longer sang. Not so much the book, but the attack on Carson as a woman and as a the little woman who didn't really understand science, tended to equate science with men and environmentalism with women. And what that does is link feminism, environmentalism, and the counterculture into one sort of countercultural movement. The result of which is both an undermining of the effectiveness of environmentalism, I would argue, but also an approach to the problems of the environment, which is known as ecofeminism or deep ecology. And interestingly, it's not unlike what Lynn White is saying. The ecofeminists argue that the roots of our environmental crisis are not in any particular oil spill or anything else, but in an underlying approach to the natural world, an underlying attitude, a cultural backdrop, if you will. They say that we've basically turned nature into a dead, mechanical thing. Whereas in the past, nature was first worshipped and later, at least, still very much alive, an organic creature. Whereas now we look at it as something that's dead, that is a mere machine. Okay? It's important to say that we can't essentialize women or nature in this context. Essentialize means simply we can't say that these things exist without looking at their historical construction, the way in which our whole conception of nature is has a history to it. The way we think about nature has a history to it. Okay. By the same token, what we think of as women has a history to it. How we conceive of women has a history to it. And so that's important to understand, that they're both historically constructed categories. That said, we do go from Gaia, the Greek goddess, who's really one of the original goddesses, if you will, Uranus and Gaia. And in fact, Gaia gives birth to Uranus, and then the two of them give birth to all these other gods. Gaia is the earth god, the earth mother god, really becomes what we think of today as Mother Nature. But with Judeo-Christian thinking, we develop an idea of kind of the daddy god, the old man with a beard conception of God. So we go from Gaia to the daddy god, and then from the daddy god to a mechanized nature during the scientific revolution. The idea of God the watchmaker, God the clockmaker, God who winds the clock up at the beginning of time and then lets it spin out. Nature then goes from being something that is alive and organic to something that is mechanical. And as a machine, it can be understood through science and manipulated through technology. So I just want to leave you now with a quick commercial.
And Goldilocks said, "Who's been?"
For chiffon margarine that was came out in the 1970s, and it's going to show us both the relationship between female and nature, and the way in which ultimately by the 1970s that ecological, even eco-feminist perspective has been co-opted by Madison Avenue. So here you go. Maybe a bit of an echo on this, but give it a listen, and I will see you in class. Bye-bye.
And Goldilocks said, "Who's been eating my porridge?"
Mother Nature? Was this on the porridge?
Yes, lots of my delicious butter.
That's chiffon margarine, not butter.
Margarine? Oh, no, it's too sweet, too creamy.
Chiffon so delicious it fooled even you, Mother Nature.
Oh, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. If you think it's butter, but it's not. It's chiffon.
Okay, gotta love the raccoon. Bye-bye.